Hello? Can you hold, please?
Shalom and welcome everyone. I want to welcome you once again to Checkpoint Training Bites. Checkpoint Training Bites is where we bring you advanced training on Checkpoint products, features, and blades. In this training module, we'll be looking at Checkpoint VPNs. Checkpoint offers two kinds of VPNs. We offer the IPSEC VPN and also the SSL VPN. In this training module, we'll be discussing both of these VPN technologies, and we're going to break down these technologies and discuss the key advantages between them, and this will help us give a better understanding of how they work. Before we get started, let's take a quick look at the agenda of this training module. We're going to start this lecture by first discussing the two different VPN solutions, how each solution has some advantages and some strengths, why some customers might prefer one solution over the other, and then again, why there might be a need to have both solutions depending on the problems and situations being encountered. Then we're going to start by dissecting one of the primary differences between both solutions, which is how each solution works with regards to OSI model, the OSI layer. And so in essence, what are some of the pros and some of the cons for each VPN method? Next, we're going to look at another consideration, which is, do you want to have a client application installed, or do you want to just use a modern day browser to authenticate and connect to the corporate office? What are some of the advantages of going client versus clientless? Which means, do you want to use a VPN client application installed on your PC, or do you just want the simplification of using a browser with its default inherent SSL capabilities? Finally, we're going to discuss another major concern, which is how simple or complex each solution is. What are some of the benefits each solution offers, and under what considerations and circumstances would you want to use one solution over the other? One final note before we get started, and I would like to remind you all to make sure you also review the summary at the end of this video. Here is where I summarize the key takeaways from this lecture, but also sometimes I also include some important nuggets that I forgot to include in the main body. And so now let's get started. In this training video, we will start to really dissect the differences between the IPSEC protocol versus the SSL protocol. We will see that each protocol offers some advantages and how each protocol has specific features and strengths, and how each protocol can be used and implemented differently. But note, I did not create this video to give you a knowledge on what blade to purchase. But instead, I created this video to give you the knowledge on how they work, how they are different, so you can understand why Checkpoint offers two different VPN solutions. In fact, we have many customers that have purchased and use both VPN blades. And so there might be some users or clients that need all of the IPSEC capabilities, or we also might have some clients or users that need all the SSL strengths. But then again, this could be the same user, but depending on the different circumstances, depending on the situations and scenarios that the user finds himself in, then the user might launch either the IPSEC VPN client, or in other scenarios, he might launch the SSL VPN. Now, in comparing both VPN solutions, let's first start off by talking about security. Both pretty much offer the same level of security. And here I'm not talking about encryption keys and strengths, but I'm referring back to the CIA model, with the scales being pretty evenly balanced between both VPN solutions. What I mean by this is that they both offer VPN encryption. They both can encrypt the data for confidentiality. They both can keep the data secure and private. They both offer data integrity to guarantee the data has not been tampered with and also not been modified while in transit. And also, they both offer authenticity, which makes sure that the authorship has been verified and proven to come from the original sender, from the original source. And so there must be other reasons to choose either VPN method. And with the scales being tipped in either direction, depending on which features are required, which features are desired. Alright, so now let's start talking about some of the major differences that separate IPSEC protocol versus the SSL protocol. One of the major features that tips the scale in favor of IPSEC protocol is that pretty much any application that uses TCP or UDP protocol can be encapsulated and encrypted through an IPSEC VPN tunnel. And this is not the case with SSL VPN. SSL VPN can only encrypt certain applications. We will see that in a moment. And so this, I believe, is IPSEC's protocol best VPN selling point. And I think it's the biggest advantage that IPSEC protocol has over the SSL protocol, in that the IPSEC VPN protocol runs deep inside the kernel, deep inside the operating system kernel. And so the IPSEC protocol runs deep inside layer 3 of the OSI model in the network stack of the operating system. And this really means that every encapsulated segment, every layer 4 segment that needs to be encapsulated into a layer 3 packet, not only will it be encapsulated into a layer 3 packet, but at the same time, it can also be encrypted within the layer 3 if needed. This in essence means that every application that runs TCP, every application that runs UDP protocol can be encapsulated inside a layer 3 IPSEC packet, which really means that every application can work over IPSEC VPN tunnel. And even better than that, not only every application, but every layer 3 protocol like ICMP, IGMP can also be encrypted within an IPSEC layer 3 VPN. And so let's draw a visual to see how this works. When the data is encapsulated down the OSI layer of the desktop's kernel and the packet reaches layer 3 of the network layer of the TCP stack, the VPN routing engine recognizes the packet needs to be sent through a VPN tunnel. The VPN routing engine requests the VPN daemon to establish and negotiate a VPN tunnel. And so the VPN daemon will negotiate a VPN tunnel with the peer. It will negotiate the keys and encryption methods that will be used later on in the VPN tunnel. And so when the tunnel negotiation is completed, then these keys and encryption methods will be used to encrypt the packet. And so then the layer 3 packet is encrypted. When the layer 3 packet is encrypted, it encrypts the whole packet. Not only does it encrypt the packet's payload, but it also encrypts the original header, the original IP addresses, the original port numbers. Then it adds its own IPSEC header, its own IPSEC IP header, and forwards the traffic through the internet on its way to the peer, which is the packet's destination IP address. In comparison with SSL VPN is that SSL is a layer 6 protocol, in that it works in layer 6 and it can only theoretically encrypt only layer 7 applications. And so any application that runs in layer 7 can use SSL protocols. The data from layer 7 gets encapsulated in a layer 6 packet, which runs SSL protocol, and then it will encrypt this data. And so any lower layer protocols running below layer 6 cannot use SSL protocols. At least not with some help from the add-ons that we'll see later on. And so to get a visual, the packet is destined to a remote server, which is the SSL server. The client will try to establish a virtual circuit to the server. It will start the three-way handshake that is used for a TCP connection. And when the three-way handshake is completed, the server will notify the client that it needs to build an SSL VPN tunnel. The client and server will exchange certificates to build SSL VPN tunnel. Then the layer 7 application will get encapsulated into a layer 6 SSL packet, and the packet continues down the OSI layer, adds the layer 4 ports, then adds the layer 3 IP addresses, then the packet is forwarded and routed through the internet on its way to its destination. And so only the data portion of the packet is encrypted. None of the layer 4 or the layer 3 information of the packet is encrypted. And so when a remote server receives the packet, it then needs to decapsulate the layer 3 packet. Then it decapsulates the layer 4 packet, just like any regular TCP packet, since nothing is encrypted up to now. And so when it moves the data segment up to the layer 6, it then will need to decrypt the SSL layer 6 payload, which contains the layer 7 data, which is processed by the layer 7 application. And then again, I'm trying to separate the two different VPN solutions into two different categories. There is some overlap that we'll look at later on. And so to keep track of this, let's start a matrix to keep track of the pros and cons. And so IPSEC VPN is a layer 3 protocol. It's a portless protocol that can encapsulate every packet. SSL, on the other hand, is a layer 6 protocol. It encrypts only layer 7 applications using port 443. One of the major differences or features is, do you need a client or do you want to go clientless? Client-based refers to an agent or app that needs to be installed on the desktop. Clientless refers to no agent or application that is installed on the desktop. I think this is where SSL shines over IPSEC. At least it was its original main selling point. This, I believe, is why Check Point introduced a second remote access method, Mobile Access Blade, when they already had IPSEC VPN remote access. In that an SSL VPN can be clientless. You do not need to install any software on the desktop or laptop or smartphone. All you need is a modern-day browser. As long as your desktop or laptop or smartphone or tablet has the latest and supported browser version, you can build a VPN tunnel to the corporate or remote office using an SSL tunnel. Every browser already has SSL capabilities directly built in. HTTPS is HTTP protocol that was encrypted using SSL protocol. So SSL VPN, which is the Mobile Access Blade, can be used with a simple browser. Whereas in IPSEC VPN remote access, you need to have a client application already installed on your desktop. And so there is a bit more manual installation process involved when you're using IPSEC VPN. Not only do you first need to install a client, but you also need to manage and support this VPN client agent on each desktop. Meaning you might need to keep it upgraded and patched. You might also need to troubleshoot when things are not working. You may need to uninstall and reinstall the new version and continue with upgrades for security and maintenance reasons. Also, this client needs to be compatible with each operating system. This client is only supported on some of the major operating systems. And so you need to ensure and test that the client has no compatibility conflicts. Just like any other application running on the desktop or PC, and so if you have a big roaming user base, there needs to be a lot of desktops or laptops to manage, upgrade, and maintain. And so this is where the strength of SSL VPN comes in. Traditionally, in SSL VPN, there really is no maintenance or management needed. All you need is a good operating system with a modern-day browser. And so really, you just need to let the browser manufacturer do the upgrade and patching of the browser. And so the manufacturers of your browser, like Chrome, Firefox, or IE, are always patching any vulnerabilities and fixing any stability issues. And so let them worry about updates and patches. And so a similar benefit with SSL VPN is that you can use any PC, any desktop, any laptop, any smartphone or tablet from any location, like a library, an internet cafe, from a friend's or a family's PC. As long as you have a browser with internet connection, you can access the corporate resources, as long as it has been configured and allowed by the administrator. As long as it meets company policy standards that were established by the security team, the SOC, then it should work. This is not so with the client-based VPN. First, the client needs to be installed by the MAS department. Second, this client can only usually be installed on corporate equipment like PCs and laptops. You probably and most likely will not be able to install the client on unauthorized desktops or PCs or your friend's PC. The client software will install, but you will not have the permissions nor the certificate properly configured to authenticate to the corporate offices, and there could be a few other reasons that it will fail to connect. So let's again start a little matrix to keep track of these pros and cons. SSL VPN is a clientless. Only a modern-day browser is required, which already comes with each and every operating system, and so it's very easy to manage and maintain. You might even say it's self-managed. IPSEC VPN, on the other hand, requires a client installation, which is harder to manage and maintain, and it can only be used on authorized or corporate hardware. And so again, for now, I'm trying to separate the differences between these two different VPN solutions into black and white categories. There's some overlap that we'll look at later on. So next, let's talk about seamless versus seamful VPN. Again, I'm trying to separate and distinguish each VPN solution from each other to give you some more perspective on why we offer different VPN solutions. And so why customers might want to run one or the other or both VPN solutions, depending on the circumstances being encountered and also depending on the situation needing resolving. And so another feature that helps tips the scale in favor of IPSEC VPN is what we call seamless VPN. IPSEC VPN is known as a seamless solution. SSL VPN is known as a seamful. And I think this is another advantage that IPSEC VPN has over SSL VPN. Once the IPSEC VPN client is installed and authenticated, the user, when traveling and is remote and not in the office, the IPSEC VPN will automatically launch and connect you directly to the corporate organization. It establishes a VPN tunnel as soon as it detects that is remote. And this, I think, is the second biggest selling point for IPSEC VPN, is that you can use all applications just like you are in the office. In fact, when traveling with my laptop, at home or on the road, I can access all my daily corporate applications and servers just like I was back at the office. For an example, I can open Outlook and send and receive emails just like I am in the office. I can seamlessly connect to SFTP servers with my SFTP client application. I can use my instant messaging application to chat directly with coworkers. I can also use our ticketing system to view and update any cases, and view and use other internal servers, including internal wiki pages and open and close tasks or cases, just like I would do if I was in the office. In fact, most of the time, I can access most of the servers and applications just like I would from the office with almost no or limited work interruptions. And so an IPSEC VPN client allows you to work from home and be just as productive as working from the office. This last point was specifically directed to my manager. In fact, we're in process of rolling out IPSEC VPN remote access as a disaster recovery solution for some or most of our office employees, meaning that if weather or other disastrous events prevent us from making it to the office, we can work from home and still keep the tickets progressing and customers updated, and continue working to keep customers satisfied and continue to provide case resolutions and provide final closure. So this behavior is different with SSL VPN. SSL VPN, for lack of a better word, is what I call seamful. In other words, SSL VPN is not seamless. There are some differences and distinctions when using SSL VPN. To connect to the office using SSL VPN, you first need to open a browser, enter and connect to the gateway's URL, HTTPS, IP address, /SSL VPN. Then you need to authenticate using your corporate credentials. Then you'll be directed to SSL web portal. This is a web page that has links to shared resources, specifically for your account, for your profile. You might see a link to get your emails, and when you click on the link, you will then be able to view your emails from a web page instead of using Outlook or regular email client. And so depending on the administrator and how it's configured or allowed, what resources have been shared, you will only see multiple links to those resources, links to an FTP server, links to different applications. This page is what we call the SSL web portal, or SSL portal for short. You can still work remotely using SSL VPN, but it's not as seamless. And again, going back to the original point, you can work with SSL VPN from anywhere, anytime, from any device, as long as you have a browser and an internet connection. So I usually only use it for quick updates on checking on customers and cases. And also I can email and CC a coworker that's in the office to have him update a ticket or work a case. And so I use SSL VPN more when I just want to touch base with the office. I need to take a quick look to see if we received an email update, or check to see if there are any case updates, or maybe I just need to access a specific file. But since I'm using a browser to do this, it limits my productivity since I'm not using the native applications. The native applications like Outlook or FTP client. But instead, I'm accessing the resources through a browser, which is still effective to check for updates on one or two cases, but it's a little bit more restrictive if I'm trying to work from home or a remote location. But the great advantage of using SSL VPN is I don't need to carry my corporate laptop with me. I can use any smartphone or tablet, or use a friend's PC or a parent's PC to connect and log into the corporate office and check or request a case update or request a file. But again, since this is SSL VPN, you are still limited by which Layer 7 applications can be tunneled over SSL. So let's go back to that matrix. IPSEC VPN is a seamless You can roam and access the corporate resources just like you are in the office. SSL VPN, on the other hand, is seamful. You can connect and authenticate through a browser, and you can access Layer 7 applications that can be tunneled through an SSL VPN. Now, before ending the session, let's take a few moments to discuss and review the topics discussed in this training module. We start off this lecture by first discussing why some customers might need to have one or both of our VPN solutions. We stated that each solution has some inherent built-in strengths and how each solution has some different features. I mentioned that I wanted to split both solutions as much as possible so we can get a better perspective on how they work, how they are different. And only later, in an upcoming video, we will review some of the cons again and see how they were resolved, how each solution today is almost indistinguishable from each other. I mentioned that some of our customers might need to have one or the other or both of our VPN solutions, depending on what strengths he needs and also what problems he is trying to resolve. And so we discussed some of the key advantages for each solution right out of the box, what we call the native strengths. Then we really started to discuss the main differences between Layer 3 versus Layer 6 VPNs. Here is where we really started to break apart and dissect each VPN solution into their primary differences. The first being that IPSEC VPN works at Layer 3 of the OSI model, which means that it can encrypt and tunnel even higher layer protocols, starting from the network layer and any protocols that reside there all the way up to the application layer. So pretty much any protocol or application can be encrypted over IPSEC VPN as long as these protocols and applications work at Layer 3 and above. And this is one of the biggest advantages of using IPSEC VPN because you can encrypt every TCP and every UDP application, including pretty much every other application that can be encrypted through an IPSEC VPN tunnel. And I explained that when a packet is encapsulated in Layer 3, if the VPN routing engine determines that the remote server is part of an encryption domain, that the Layer 3 will encrypt the data, plus the whole segment and packet, then it adds its own IPSEC header and its own IPSEC trailer, then assigns a new IP address header before forwarding the packet on its way to the peer to the IPSEC VPN gateway. Then the remote VPN gateway has to decrypt the whole packet from Layer 3 plus the Layer 4 and then decrypt the data portion of the packet before it can decapsulate the whole packet so then it can process it through the kernel's OSI stack. Then we discussed the SSL VPN, which uses SSL capabilities inherently built into Layer 6 layer of most applications, most TCP applications. So SSL VPN uses default SSL features that are built into every browser. And so we mentioned that only the Layer 6 data is encrypted. None of the transport or network header information is encrypted. This really simplifies VPNs, since it makes it very simple to just open a browser and connect to the remote side. But since VPN encryption is done only at Layer 6, then only Layer 7 applications can be encrypted, specifically only TCP Layer 7 applications. And then we discussed what are some of the advantages of having IPSEC VPN application versus using SSL VPN browser. We talked about the SSL VPN solution and that one of its strengths and advantages is that an SSL VPN product uses a browser, either i.e. Firefox or Chrome. And so Checkpoint SSL VPN takes advantages of every browser Layer 6 capabilities, which can do SSL encryption. And we mentioned that every modern day browser has built-in SSL capabilities inherently to each of its browsers, which can really simplify VPN since most of the company user base are already familiar with using a browser, and so they can use their preferred browser of choice. We mentioned that all you need to do is open a browser from a PC or any laptop and also from any smartphone or tablet. In essence, it allows most users to connect from anywhere, anytime, with any device and still establish an SSL VPN to the corporate location. Then we talked about IPSEC VPN, which requires an application installation. The application can have some pre-configured parameters already configured by the administrator, like what sites to connect to. You can also configure it to automatically detect when it's remote, and it will automatically connect and encrypt any data that you access or send to the remote office. but this client needs to be installed and managed on corporate desktops or laptops by the MIS department. Then we talked about seamless IPSEC VPNs versus seamful SSL VPNs. I mentioned that IPSEC VPN is a seamless solution, which allows you to work from home just like you are in the office. You will be able to access your emails or servers or files just like you are in the office. I mentioned that you would be able to access your native applications like Outlook, SFTP client, and also servers and files just like you would be if you were in the office. So IPSEC VPN best feature is that you can work from home or remote just like you would be from the office with little or no network interruption or degradation. On the other hand, I mentioned that SSL VPN is, for lack of a better word, a seamful solution, which means that you will need to access your files or data and emails from a browser, from SSL web portal page. I mentioned that SSL VPN browser first needs to connect to SSL VPN gateway, which will then redirect you to a browser page to what we call the SSL portal. And after authentication and logging in, you'll be able to see all the applications that are shared or were shared by the administrator. This application will show up as links in the SSL portal page, and once you click on the link, it will display your application data inside the browser page, just like your email will be accessible through the browser. You're able to view your email through a browser, and you will also be able to view any servers or files or applications that were shared by the administrator using the Mobile Access VPN product. It will still allow you to work remotely, but most of the applications will only be accessible through the web browser. But then again, only TCP applications will have SSL capabilities inherently built in. One final note, before leaving this video, I just want to make the point that I did not and tried not to give the impression that one solution is better than the other. I just want to separate them into different categories, and I tried to list each solution's native strengths. Later, in an upcoming lecture, we will see how each VPN limitations are addressed, how each solution cons are turned into pros. I find that IPSEC VPN is mostly used by administrators, which allows them to access most of the corporate resources, just like they would if they were in the office. I find that most of the company user base are better served by using SSL VPN. But it's really most of a company or user preference or choice. There is really no hard or true answers here. For example, I prefer to use IPSEC VPN because it allows me to take my laptop with me and I'm still able to connect from home and work from home when traveling remotely or abroad during my work business hours. My manager, on the other hand, prefers to use his smartphone with SSL VPN capabilities. He can always be connected to the office, and he can check the status of what's happening at the office since he has his phone with him all the time, 24/7. And so he's always connected to the office. He can always call the office or customers if needed and still stay connected to the office with SSL VPN. I really hope this video has helped shed some light on the differences between SSL VPN versus IPSEC VPN.
I hope you found this video informative. I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, shalom and bye for now.
Checkpoint. We secure the future.